Hi, my name is Alpesh and I'm based in London. Yeah, so my family called me Apu to an extent that, for the first 6 years of my life, I grew up in a village in Gujarat. The whole village would call me Apu. They wouldn't know what my real name was. One of my co-teachers used to call me Al. She is from USA. So, then I got to know that, they just shorten the names.
Hi, my name is Kawish. I'm in Toronto, Canada. I think the one that kind of was the one that stuck the most was Kiwi. So it's just something that came from just working with a lot of children in camps and working with them at community education centers and so on. So it's really funny because one time a child came up to me and was like, I'm allergic to kiwi. Like for real. And actually it's quite a common allergy that I didn't know about, but a lot of kids are, allergic to kiwis.
Hi, my name is Aashna and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. My family likes to call me Ashu. My mom sometimes called me Ashu Rani, which is Aashna, like queen. And then, the name that I give on my orders, because you can't always pronounce or spell Aashna, is Ash. So I've been go by Ash often too, especially when I'm getting my coffee in the morning.
Hi, my name is Atif and I'm based in Karachi, Pakistan. Actually, my name is very short, so I do not get very weird nicknames because easy to pronounce. But normally in my childhood, people used to call me like Ati.
Who here can cook? Who here sings in the shower? Who here had an imaginary friend growing up? Who here felt different than those around you growing up? Who still feels different than those around them? Who here played with Legos? Who here played video games? Who here played an instrument? Who here spends too much time on screens? Who here spends too much money? Who would say that they're a dreamer? Who would say that they're a realist? Who would say they are artistic? Who would say they are analytical? Who would like to give up a bad habit? Who has experienced prejudice or racism? Who finds it hard to explain who Ismailis are? Who would like to move somewhere else one day? Who thinks they're funny? Who is more of a coffee drinker? Who makes a great cup of chai? What is your favorite thing to have with chai?
Indian basin chilla.
Yeah, I think it just changes, but I think lately it's been shortcake.
So basically, I have chai every day with cookies. So it's my favorite since childhood, and I cannot replace it with any other thing.
I don't do this often, but bread, butter, shakkar, which is just bread, butter, and sugar dipped in chai. It's something I used to do when I was a child, and so I do it when I miss home.
If you could be sipping this cup of chai anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I think I've been away from family for a while now, so I think I'd just go back to my family. They live in Montreal, and I'm in Toronto, not too far, but yeah, I'd like to go back and have a cup with them. Yeah.
I think Kawish and I, we shared the same feeling here. Even I'm away from the family for the past 3 years. So hopefully by end of this month, I'm seeing them. So, I would love to have a cup of chai with my family there.
I love having warm drinks in cold weather, so I would go somewhere in the mountains with snow, sitting on a porch with my blanket and a hot cup of chai. And then, of course, friends and family around me.
I would say that I have the same wish as Aashna because I would also love to have a cup of chai with my friends and family somewhere on the top of a mountain in a cold weather with nature all around and having the feel of every sip which I take. So this I would like to wish and have.
What's a challenge that concerns you in your own life right now?
I think for me, the challenge is just figuring out life in general, where I'm headed, what direction I want to go in. Because for a big part of my life, I think the goals have been set for me. And now I'm at that point where I have to set my own goals, have to continue discovering who I am and go about all of this. So I think in general, I think what I'm struggling with is finding what kind of life I do want to build in the next few years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now it's just finding a balance between all my different priorities. So from work to family life to things I do for Seva in Jamakana, and just trying to figure out where my priorities lie and how to balance everything I want to do in my life. It's just I feel like I have so many different paths I want to take, so many different things I want to commit to, but still want to give 100% to all of the things. And so finding that balance is it's a struggle for sure.
I think life without challenge is something like a horizon. So there are many challenges, but I think something that I'm struggling with at the moment is my son is moving into secondary school next year, so just trying to prepare him and look for good schools. I'm not new to this country, so it's proving really challenging for me to understand the context of the schools. What are the top schools here? Although we have support from the institutions, but I would like to be independent in my own research. So that is something that I'm struggling with at the moment, and hopefully, fingers crossed, things will be smooth.
For me nowadays, I think I'm pretty much interested in knowing how we can utilize or we can make the time slow, because life is going too fast. And now my wish and my goal is that how in the remaining part of life I can stay close to my loved ones, my friends, my family, because uh, nowadays you see everyone is like migrating here and there for the better future, and the opportunity cost of this is that you have to leave a lot of relationships, your personal habits, your lifestyle behind, and you have to adjust yourself. So I am struggling how I can make my life like I want to, mold my life in a way that I want it to be, and the wish which I have to have a life close to everyone whom I love. And because life is too short to just run in a marathon, we all are in just marathon, running and running and leaving a lot of things behind. So how I can take all the things together, this is what I'm struggling right now, and I wish I can overcome this soon.
I think the whole concept of time and like hustle culture that we call it here in America or North America, of just constantly want to use every single moment to do something and constantly moving, constantly trying to keep going. I think it's a struggle because you want to also make sure you're enjoying the time that we have and then you're enjoying the small moments, but at the same time it feels like when you're enjoying something, time is running out and you have to then keep going and keep struggling and keep hustling. So I relate to that for sure.
I think the idea that Atif shared about slow living is one that I really relate to. I think that's something that I've been trying to practice more and more. And even though you are in a culture that, like Ashna said, emphasizes this busyness and this hustle, that you still find a way to integrate slow living into it. I love waking up in the morning and with full awareness make my cup of chai or coffee, right? Or with full awareness make myself the breakfast and allow myself the time that I need to do sort of those things and not always be rushing. And I have struggled with time management in the past, but this new outlook kind of somehow gives me more than enough time to do other things as well. So I think it's about self-awareness and perception, and developing that to accommodate all of those things in your daily life. I think it tends to work well, but it's a practice. So I like what you shared, Atif.
Yeah, I think I agree with Atif, but I also have a different point of view. That the world is evolving, and I think we need to keep up with the pace of the world. Our future lies in the future, right? So I understand that we have to move slowly, But I think we'll also have to move quickly with the world that we are living in, otherwise, we'll be left behind.
What does mental health mean to you?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think for me, it's all about finding your happiness or your moment of peace or your moments of peace, right? Whether that be at work, whether that be with your family relationships, your friends, your seva, your whatever you're doing in your life. How do you sort of build your life to where you're at peace in your life and sort of protecting that peace? And that's where a lot of these mental health sort of techniques come in, of mindfulness and boundaries and talking about it and reducing the stigma. All of that is just my way of finding peace with myself and peace with my life choices and peace with the way I'm living my life. And I think, yeah, I think that's what I strive for, of just finding that moment of peace in my life.
Yeah, I like to view mental health in parallel with physical health. And it's not always necessarily bifurcated either because one can impact the other. But I try to view it that way, that just as how I'm taking care of my physical well-being, and we all have our own ways of taking care of that, and when you do suffer some kind of illness, that you do get the help that you need to get better. Similarly with mental health, that you can do kind of everyday things to take care of it, but then when there is a significant challenge, that you do get the help, you do get the support. So I try to view it like in a parallel with physical health. Yeah.
I would agree with Kawish. Mental health to me is similar to physical health. Like how physically you look, how fit you look. Similarly, it's like how healthy is your mind, how healthy you think, you comprehend, and you adopt in your surroundings.
I think it's all about emotional intelligence, trying to be aware of your emotions, what triggers your emotions. Particularly being a father, I think you see the emotions every day in and out in your children, and then that emotion reflects in your action as well, and vice versa. So I think being aware of yourself, what triggers you, uh, what are the issues that going on in your mind, and how do you deal with them, keeping in mind that you're aware of that, with the idea of mindfulness that Ashna was mentioning earlier. And I think dealing with that with emotional intelligence is something that I think makes a good mental health.
Can you tell us a bit about any of your own mental health struggles?
Yeah, I think there was a lot in there. But I think the most significant challenge was losing a loved one, especially someone that you reconnected with only towards the end of their life. And so it was my grandfather, that I genuinely found that I had such a great opportunity to care for their health. But then, because of their deteriorating health, just having to see him in that state, and then pass away, and so it was very difficult. But in addition to that, just so I graduated just before COVID started, and so I had completely different plans for my life, but it was all turned around. And so just dealing with that, with identity, with where am I headed, what my goals are, what I want to do in life, and then struggling with um, things like losing a loved one, relationship, family, and so on. So it was kind of a whole package for me, to be honest. But one thing that I learned through that experience is that struggles will always be there. In fact, my name in Urdu means to strive, to overcome struggles, or for struggle. It's basically struggling. So so I used to tell my mom, like, why didn't you just name me Success? But I understood, perhaps after this kind of experience, that um, struggle is the meaning of life, isn't it? And you can choose to suffer through it, or you can choose to grow and come out a more resilient person, a person who's learned, who's become more knowledgeable as a result. And I like to think that I chose the second one, although it didn't come with its fair share of suffering. So That's really the journey that I've been on and that I continue to be on.
I think, similar to Kawish, losing a loved one was a critical thing during COVID for me. I think, I lost my grandmother during that time, not because of COVID, but she was suffering from other illness, and because of COVID, there were no facilities that could, you know, take her and cure her, because everybody was busy curing COVID at that time, and this was very early in the pandemic. So I think I grew up with my grandmother. She was more close to me than my parents, and I think seeing her uh, on the bed, being feeling helpless, was something that I think created a lot of stress in terms of mental health. And also in the later part of COVID, I lost job as well, uh, not because I was laid off, but it was my own decision to leave. And that kind of proved to be really good, because I got good 8 months to spend with my family. I got to see my the second one grow up. I couldn't see my first one grow up as much. So I think it was a blessing in disguise for me. But there were two sides of mental health for me during COVID.
Yeah, I think my story is a little different. I like to introduce myself when I volunteer at camps and I'm speaking with our Ismaili youth. I introduce myself as a person with living experience with anxiety and depression, and I very honestly and openly talk about that, especially with our youth. But I have lived with anxiety and depression for my entire life, so way before COVID. And in those times where mental health was not talked about as openly as it's talked about these days. And so I've lived through some of those darker, more secretive mental health struggles myself. And I think, I sort of was very alone in my struggle and very alone in sort of trying to find my way out of there. Growing up an immigrant, didn't have access to health insurance, so really not even having access to a therapist or someone to talk to about all of this, and really using social media as my therapist and finding people that I connect with online and working through those things up until COVID. And then I think when COVID happened and I heard of others struggling and I saw others struggling and I saw, people starting to be more open, I decided that it was time for me to be more open and really share my struggles, because I want others to know that they're not alone, that there are other people out there that they can reach out to and they can talk to. I may not be a professional, but I'm here to talk to you, and I'm here to support you and share in your pain and share in your successes too when you have a good day. And that's what I do even now when I work with our youth. I try to be that person that they can go and talk to and they can ask for help when they need it. Yeah, and I feel like I have come a long way. I have changed a lot about myself, my environment, the people, my triggers, and I want to make sure that I'm sharing that story and I'm being very open so that others could then hopefully reach a point in their life where they can, go from mental illness to mental wellness, is like what we like to call it, right? So hopefully at one point everyone is reaching mental wellness and they have the tools to do that.
So we are talking about mental stresses. So I would like to relate a bit with living in Thailand and Pakistan. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that in Pakistan you have a stress early morning whenever you are going to your work. You have stress of security and all the domestic issues, right? But if I compare that to the Thailand, because I was working there for a year, so every morning we were like very relaxed while going to the work, and the people of Thailand are so welcoming and so like happy people. They are like smiling every time. So even in the morning, I used to go early to the work. Like my work timings are around 7:30. So even like in the early morning, whenever you are entering the office, everyone is like saying you hello, sawadee. They say in like Thailand, like welcome, hello, and everyone is smiling. So what I feel the difference when I came back here, that I used to work in Thailand with a good efficiency, because in the morning my mood was happy. But here, like whenever you go, you have some domestic tensions in your mind. So definitely you start your morning with that mood. So this definitely impacts your mental health a lot, because like all the day you are like whatever I say that the like you ever whenever you are making a building, if the foundation is strong, the building is good. Similarly, whenever you are starting your day depends on how you start, the mood with which you start your day. So your entirely day revolves around that mood.
What are the goals that you have for yourself when it comes to either mental health, well-being? What is it that you are striving for?
You know, I struggled a little bit a few years ago, especially during COVID for various reasons. And that's where I started looking at um, kind of transformational coaching. I sort of really got into that, and I became an accredited coach, but it's not something that I practice, but it's something that I think benefited me and a lot of people around me. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I think it's to keep pursuing these transformations. It could be something small, just a shift in thinking that can really set you up for exponential success. And so I don't think I have concrete goals as such right now. But what I can talk about is if I can confidently say that I've done things in my day to day that lead to a healthy mindset, then I think I'm successful. So one of those things is getting good quality sleep, for example. Earlier we talked about scrolling and things like that. I do struggle with that a little bit. I think I want to sleep on time, wake up on time, have a better routine, and integrate my slow living in there, hopefully. But that I think is very important. Exercise to me is very important. So I would say that's a goal, that to just be regular and consistent in that as well. Eating healthy is something that I've done a lot lately, and so that's just something that I would like to maintain. So I would put it in these three areas, which are taking care of both my physical and my mental health.
I think you have mentioned about my family as well. So I think one thing that I really want to look at is how can I take care of my family, so that I'm planning for the future as well. But in terms of personal development, taking care of personal mental health, I would like to be self-aware of my triggers, which are negatively impacting me, and triggers that are positively impacting me, and would like to work on things that positively impact my well-being, whether it's spending time with the family, going to watch a movie with the family, or just going on a walk. And I think being aware of negative emotions is something that I really want to work on and try to overcome that.
So currently, like I would just give you a recap about my life, that I have been living away from my family and then also living with them. Like when I was studying for university, so I had to relocate from one city to another. So during that time of 4 or 5 years period, I was living away from my family. Definitely, I had a chance to visit them after every 15 days or like that. Then recently, like I just came few months before back to Pakistan. So I was working in Thailand for a year. So again, that period I was away from my family, and now I'm back. So what I am struggling now, or what I'm striving for, is that how I can make a sustainable future for me, in which I could live with everyone I love. Because to me, life is like, at the end of the day, everything will remain here, right? So I have to live my life up to the world, because you have to be competitive as well in order to survive and in order to live a quality life. But on the other hand, I also think that I want to contribute something, that even if the span, whatever I have, the life gifted from Allah, so whenever I go back, so what will be the impact which I have created before going back? So this is what I am thinking of, and I would say that this, whenever I am able to achieve this thing, it will give me like mental peace to me. Right now, I am like in a struggle mode, that I have to achieve these things, that I have to be thankful in my life, having a surrounding full of love and support, and also I want to contribute something towards my society, so that it keeps on continuing and growing, even if I'm not here physically.
I think right now my life is all about choosing joy for myself and doing things that bring me joy that are for me. Growing up in a South Asian household, being the eldest daughter, I definitely have, we call it eldest daughter syndrome, right? Of taking care of the family, being the person that the family really depends on. And I think for a really long time, I filled that role in my family for a while. And now I'm really refocusing on myself and trying to find ways to bring myself happiness and to, continue to be there for my family, of course, continue to be that support, but also balancing that with my own needs and with my own happiness and my own things that are going to really help me grow in my life and keep moving forward in my life too. So that's the goal for at least for the next few months of just choosing joy for myself. Yeah.
What issues do you see in the world around you?
I think it can be different sources of stress. And I think going back to this idea of the fast-paced environment and so on, I genuinely don't believe that human beings, as resilient as they can be, are meant to be in such an environment. And so these added stress, unaddressed, can have kind of long-term impacts and can really impact even your physical health, right? We've seen what science tells us about this. So I think a lot of just general stress, there's a financial aspect to it. It could be family and so on. And so I think there's a multitude of it. And then at the same time, things that are going on around the world, we see injustices, we see war and things like that. And so we're globally very much connected. But then we are also being overloaded with such information, so it can be kind of difficult to understand how you feel emotionally about certain things and how you connect with others and so on. So I think in general, these stresses are having a big impact, and especially when they're unaddressed, not communicated, or you don't have an avenue, or you feel like you don't have the time to get these things out of your system, I think can have a very detrimental impact.
So I would agree with Kawish that the surrounding in which you are living, so there are multiple stresses which are impacting your mental health. So for example, in Pakistan, one of the biggest stress for everyone is security. So every morning when you are leaving for the work, so the first thing which you have in your mind is that whether I will be able to reach safely at my work, and whether I am at work, what would be like the condition of my family behind, or if I have kids, they are already in the school, so will they be able to reach on time and come back safely. So similarly, like this, there are many other stresses, and ultimately these surroundings and stress also impact on how you work. Like if I'm going in the morning with these stress in my mind, so definitely I'll have impact on the working as well, because all the time I have back in my mind that how is my family and what is going on at my home, and I be able to reach on time after my work. So these all stresses make you a bit less efficient in your work as well.
Yeah, I think stress for sure, and all the world events happening and everything sort of bombarding us. But I also feel like we just emotional regulation is becoming harder and harder for us to do as humans, right? Sitting with our emotions, really understanding how we're feeling, understanding why we're getting angry, why we're withdrawing within ourselves, why we're having these reactions to these things happening around us, but then also understanding why others are having reactions or why others are having their reactions, right? So a very simple example of like my parents getting angry, like why are they always angry? What is happening in their lives that's causing them to have these reactions, and how are they dealing with it emotionally, and how am I dealing with it emotionally? I think we just don't spend a lot of time sitting with our emotions, thinking about our emotions, thinking about how we're regulating our emotions, and sort of how we're showing up in our everyday lives.
Right. So I think there are two factors: the internal factors and external factors. When I say internal factors, it is this whole idea of individualism. We are losing the human touch we are losing the idea of our social consciousness, right? And I think that is causing a lot of distress in the world out there, and that is also causing stress within individuals as well, because there is no one to look up to for help, for support. And I think this whole idea of community, which is lacking in the Western world particularly, is something that is causing a lot of stress, in my opinion. uh, from an internal point of view, again, family conflicts, managing your own work life balance, managing the expectations of different family members is another factor for causing stress within the internal factors. And I think from an external point of view, the world events that are taking place at the moment, you see what's happening in Gaza, you see what's happening in Syria, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, various communities are displaced. That is not only causing stress and mental issues to that local community, but also the world as well, because somewhere or the other, through politics, through economics, we are all connected. And I think that is impacting people living outside those distressed areas as well. And I think this whole notion of individualism is something that stands out to me in whole factor.
So, in the Eastern world, I think, in my perspective, there is a bit different things because we are like a lot of connected with people in a daily life basis, whether it be your work or after work hours, like we go to Jamaat Khana or community center. So you socialize a lot, and then you hear like people telling their stories, and then you start comparing their stories to what's going in your life. So it's like, to me, external to internal. Like normally there are two things. I agree with Alpesh that internal stress and external, but where I live, I think external stresses are giving birth to your internal stress, because when you are hearing all these negativity around you or positivity around you, so ultimately you go back home, you reflect what you did today, what you heard today, what's going on in other people's life, then you do a comparison. Of course, comparison, I would say that it's not like bad. Sometimes you do have to do comparison to find a better option for yourself. So all these things pile up in your mind, and they may generate some kind of stress in your life as well. Whether like yesterday I was okay, but today I met some people, I had some gossip related to what's going on, and now tomorrow I would be like a bit more stressful. So this is what I think is going on around me.
I had so much fun getting to share a cup of chai with three amazing Ismailis from around the world as we talked about mental health issues that we all face. It not only made me feel less alone, but also more connected to the global ummah.
Discussing mental health with diverse people from across the globe was incredibly powerful. It made me realize the universal impact of mental health and breaking down the stigma related to it.
I got this amazing chance to share my thoughts and connect with excellent people. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Truly enriching experience, getting to engage in a dialogue on mental health and hearing others' stories was really rewarding for me, and it really encourages us to continue this conversation.